Welcome to Learning Li-Fraumeni Syndrome. My name is Andi Last, and this video and audio podcast is a service of Living LFS. And our mission is to empower, encourage, and educate those living with Li-Fraumeni Syndrome. Learn more at livinglfs.org. And today, our guest is a very special man. His name is Dan Gordon. He is the producer and co-writer of a film called Let There Be Light, the first ever movie to mention Li-Fraumeni Syndrome.
For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son.
Whoa. Don't you dare tell me about the love and the compassion of your God. Because if he felt like sacrificing his only son, that's his business. But he should have bloody well kept his hands off of mine! My son, is that you? I can't stop thinking about Davey, and how he looked and how it felt.
I felt love I've never felt before.
You know why? Because you were bathed in the light of our Lord and Savior.
In theaters October 27th.
Dan, thank you so much for joining me today on Learning LFS. How are you?
I'm wonderful. My pleasure to be here, and thanks for having me.
Can you first of all give me a little bit of a little bit about your background?
Oh dear, I've been a professional screenwriter. I hate to say now, for a half century. I sold my first screenplay when I was 20 years old, so I'm 70 now. So I've been at it a while, and I may make it a career, I suppose.
And Dan's been involved in movies such as Passenger 57. He's been on TV shows such as Highway to Heaven. So your career is quite lengthy and quite storied, I might say.
Yeah, I've had a good run. This will mark my 17th feature-length film. I've got about 200 or 300 hours of major television behind me, so I've been able to fool them for a while, and hopefully can continue to do that.
Fantastic. Can you give me a little synopsis of the new movie, Let There Be Light?
Sure. There is a character named Saul Harkins, who's sort of a cross between Christopher Hitchens and Bill Maher and Richard Dawkins. He's the most famous atheist in the entire world. He undergoes a near-death experience when he has a near-fatal car crash as a result of having ingested way too much alcohol and probably a few chemicals along the way. And during that experience, he has a life-changing event. When he comes back, everything he's believed heretofore is thrown into doubt. And it's a very real film about people who deal with very real problems, who have very real struggles with their faith, who have very real struggles with what we call life. There's not an awful lot of sugarcoating here. There's not talk to the preacher and everything will be fine, because in my experience, that isn't the way life tends to work. But you do walk out of the film, I think, with a spirit of hope and uplifted, and something happens that I've never seen before. Every theater, literally, that we've heard from, people sit there through the end credits without moving, and they stay there when the lights come up, and when they walk out of the theater, they are hugging each other and smiling, and that's a good thing.
So I want to tell you the experience of one of our members that went to see the movie. She has Li-Fraumeni Syndrome. She recently just found out that she has cancer again in her leg. So she and her husband went to see the latest faith-based movie of hope. And she said she almost fell out of her seat when they mentioned Li-Fraumeni Syndrome, the condition that she actually has. Can you explain how it was that Li-Fraumeni Syndrome came to be in this movie?
Sure. Everything about this movie, I think, is providential. Sam Sorbo, who is Kevin Sorbo's wife, is a dear friend of mine, and called me up one day and said, "Would you consider writing a movie with me?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Why not?" And I said, "Because I don't share my toys, and I don't play well with others, and it's just not what I do. I don't write with other people." She said, "Well, will you meet me for coffee?" I said, "I don't drink coffee." She said, "Well, will you meet me for lunch, you miserable bum?" And I said, "Sure, be delighted to." And she told me a story, and suddenly I realized that the story presented me with an opportunity to get a lot of things that I've never discussed with anyone, really, in a very therapeutic way, out of my system onto the page, that had to deal with the death of my own son in a car accident, and with my brother's illness, and my brother had LFS and was diagnosed with a very virulent brain tumor, and so there's an awful lot of my life experience in there, and my life experience with LFS in there. My brother was my idol. He was my big brother. Everything he did was cool. Everything he did, I wanted to emulate, and never could. He was always better at it than me. And so it was really something I had never talked about or shared about or written about, and it was a chance to do that in a way that I felt would be beneficial to a lot of people, not just me.
Well, right now I would like to thank you very much for bearing your soul that way, bearing your own personal history that way, and obviously for us also helping to make the words Li-Fraumeni Syndrome known to the outside world, to people beyond those of us that actually have it. I appreciate the fact that you were willing to open yourself up like that, to do that, because it does create awareness for those of us that have it, as well as for the rest of the world that doesn't know anything about it.
Yeah, and that was intentional. I mean, we could just as easily have said anything else, and I had never seen LFS mentioned in a movie, and I know it's a rare condition, and part of what I felt I sort of owed my brother was to create an awareness, and it's opening the door a crack, and somebody else is going to open it a little bit wider, and there's going to be a little bit more light shine in, and I think that's a good thing.
Now, I wrote in a blog post on our blog, which is at livinglfs.org/blog, about the fact that obviously because of time constraints and for dramatic purposes, it's necessary to condense, and you can't necessarily get on the entire, all the information about LFS and turn it into a PSA or anything like that. But obviously the mention of the fact that there's 2 other boys involved that should probably be tested, talking about the other family history. I'm curious to know, has LFS shown up elsewhere in your family? Was he de novo? Have you been tested?
I actually haven't been tested. LFS has shown up in another generation, and no, I haven't been tested. And why haven't I? I don't have a good answer for that. I suppose I sort of feel. I'll put it in God's hands. Maybe that's a stupid thing to do. I don't know. I probably should be tested. But yeah, that's the answer to that one. Well,
you mentioned that you're 70, so you've made it this far. You haven't had cancer, I take it. So it seems like you're in good shape. In any case, even if you do have it, you've made it this far, and you haven't had the personal experience with it. So congratulations.
Yeah, I'm not going to be cut down in my prime, no matter what. So.
There you go. So this movie is about faith. It's about finding your faith, and especially for the LFS community. We're dealing with people who have had, in a lot of cases, every member of their family struck by tragedy. And a lot of them, I won't say a lot of them, but a number of them have a similar reaction to Saul in the movie. How in the world is it God's will for him to take my family away from me, and in such a tragic way with so much suffering? How do you respond to those kind of questions?
Look, you're talking to someone whose firstborn child was killed. No one understands that better than me. I mean, my son left this planet at 22, 6 months after he graduated first in his class at NYU, with more promise than anyone on the face of the earth. And I certainly went through a period that's depicted in the film of, an awful lot of alcohol has passed through my body, and a lot of chemicals have passed through my body, and a lot of anger has passed through my body. And at the end of the day, if one's just talking about my own faith, I sort of feel that we're all individual pieces of a mosaic, and that little tiny piece of the mosaic can't possibly see the design. The design is only visible from up there, but I take it on faith that there is a design. I take it on faith that what happened with my brother enabled me to tell this story, and that something good's going to come out of that that my son's legacy now has resulted in a film school that he envisioned. Really, our last conversation was about this film school. It's now a $60 million facility at Liberty University. It has 350 declared film majors and 250 minors and 800 kids taking classes. So I've seen that design sort of get played out, and I take it on faith that the big G knows what he's doing a lot more than I do. And I don't, it's not, I'm not trying to force my faith on anybody. My faith is really private matter. It's my faith. But I can tell you what feels better. It feels better to say, I think there's a design. I think there's a grand creator. I think he loves me. I think that I may not understand why this is happening, but I will tell you that there's not a day that I don't feel my son's presence working with me, that I didn't feel him. He was also my writing partner on numbers of things. When I wrote this, I had him over my shoulder, kicking my ass when I needed it, and patting me on the back and giving me an attaboy when I needed that one too. And there were parts of the screenplay, since I dictate, I don't type, where I went through some tough times writing the screenplay, and ultimately came out of the other side a better person for it, smiling for it, and uplifted by it and grateful for that experience. And I think that's what audiences go through. I think they come out uplifted like that. And the one thing that I want to say to your audience is, we're right now up against a Goliath. We are the little David. We made this movie on less than $3 million. We have no advertising budget. We had Sean Hannity promoting it and word of mouth, and the word of mouth is insane. And we've never been out of the top 10 since we opened, and we're up against Thor and every slasher movie known to man. And this weekend there's an onslaught of 10,000 screens with new movies led by the Justice League. I mean, we're up against Wonder Woman and Batman. So I would urge the members of your community, this may be their last opportunity to see it in the theaters, but to just tell their friends, tell everyone to whom it's important to get the word out about LFS, to go to the theaters this weekend. It may be the last opportunity to see the film. If we hold on this weekend, we stand a good chance of coasting through the holidays, but we really are David up against Goliath, and you guys are the stone. So that's what we got in our pouch, is you.
Dan Gordon is the screenwriter, co-screenwriter, and producer of Let There Be Light, which is a brand new movie that mentions, the only movie that we know of that mentions Li-Fraumeni Syndrome. It is executive produced by Sean Hannity. It is starring Kevin Sorbo, who is formerly Hercules, formerly on Andromeda, and as well as his real-life family, including his wife, Sam Sorbo. They play the main characters, and it is in theaters right now. Dan Gordon, thank you very, very much for joining me on Learning Li-Fraumeni Syndrome.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, have a great day.
You too.